Hi there. In this video, I'll be going over the basics of the user interface in ProtoTwin. I'll be showing you how to navigate and perform common operations with the UI, such as creating entities, adding components, and the different buttons that can be used. The panel to the left is called the Explorer. The Explorer lists the entities in the virtual world. If we right-click, we can then click the Create button to create a new entity. This entity will be automatically selected. It is also possible to delete entities, which you can do by right-clicking again and then clicking the Delete button. I'll now go ahead and create two entities. First, I'll right-click, then create a box, then similarly for a cylinder. Now I'll just move the cylinder to the side. You can also click on an entity in the Explorer to select it and then again to deselect it. To select many entities, you can use the Control key and click like this, and then deselect the individual entities. You can also use the Shift key to select many entities in the Explorer. You can also rename entities. To do this, right-click again to open the drop-down menu and click Rename. I'll enter a name for the box I created, then I'll rename the cylinder as well. If I now select the cylinder and the box, I can right-click, then select Group. This will create a new parent entity and make the cylinder and the box a child of the parent. The little plus button to the side indicates this entity has children, which you can expand by clicking the button, which will show the children, and then click again to close it. If you would like to copy entities or hierarchies of entities, you can do that by right-clicking the entity, copying it, then right-click in the Explorer pane, and then paste it. You can also delete hierarchies of entities. If we delete the copied parent entity, each of its children will also be deleted. We can also reparent entities. If I select one of its children, then drag and drop it outside of Entity 5, it will now no longer be a child of that entity. I'll do the same thing for the cylinder too. We can also drag the cylinder and drop it on top of Entity 5 to make it a child again. For now, I'll just unparent it and then delete the parent entity. It is also possible to toggle the visibility of entities in the world. If I right-click the box, then I click these two buttons, I can make the mesh for the box you see invisible, and then make it visible again. The last thing I want to show you with the Explorer is that you can also search for entities by their name, or you can search for entities by their components, which you can toggle by clicking the search icon to the side. So now I can search for, let's say, the lens of the camera. If the checkbox to the side of components is not enabled, you can also search for a component using the :character prefix before entering the name of the component. Now that we're on the subject of components, I think we are ready to talk about the inspector. If I select a newly created entity, you will see that in the panel to the right, called the inspector, that every entity in the world has a transform component. Every component has properties. The transform component, for example, has a local position, so 3 numbers, and we can change the value of this property by entering a number. We can also add components to entities. To do this, open the Add Component drop-down menu at the bottom, and then select a component from the list. I'll first add a graphics component, which will give the entity a visual appearance in the world. This is like our box that we created before. You will notice that it has a geometry property, and if you open the drop-down menu, you will see the different values this property can have. Some components also have categories. The graphics component has an advanced category, which you can open and then toggle its values like we did earlier. I'll now go ahead and add a motor component, which can be used to control things like physics joints and conveyors. You may notice that some of these properties, like the current position achieved by the motor's controller, will have its values disabled in the inspector, meaning they can't be modified directly by the user. If we click the ellipsis to the right of the component, you will see a bunch of other options. The first being I/O. That will display the I/O signals for that motor component. If we close the model window, then click the ellipsis again, we can also rename the component. For example, I'll give it the name Drive, then save it. We can also revert the name back to its original name by clearing the name and then clicking Save again. I'd also like to point out that some components may also reference other components. For example, if I add an actuation controller, you will see that it has a motor property. I can then select the motor on this entity I created just before, so that it now references it. I'll now go ahead and delete the motor component, which you can do by clicking the ellipsis again, then clicking Delete. This will also reset the properties of any other components that reference this motor. The list of components may become very long, especially if you create many components with scripting. You can also search for components. For example, I'll search for the path component, then add it to the entity. Some components have properties with buttons to the side. For example, the graphics component has a material property with a plus button, which will create a new material. The path component has a curve property. The curve can be selected by clicking the feature selection button and then selecting a feature of the mesh, for example, the circle at the top of the cylinder. There are so many different types of properties for different components that you can play around with. I won't cover all of these in this short introductory video, but hopefully you have a good sense now of what components are, and generally the kind of things you can do with them. I'll now go ahead and talk a bit about the viewport. If we move the cylinder up. Now if I click the play button in the control bar at the top to start the simulation, you will notice nothing has really happened. That's because the entity has graphics, but no physics component has been assigned. To make persistent changes, we need to reset the simulation. Then we can add a physics component. Now if we play the simulation again, the cylinder will fall and collide with the floor. Another small part about the UI that I want to mention is the info bar at the bottom, which will show you the number of bodies in the world, the number of entities in the world, the current speed of the simulation, and the current time from when the simulation was initialized. There are also a few other buttons in the info bar, like the console, which you can log values to from your scripts. The button to the right is the physics debug view. Enabling this will render the physics colliders and other information to help debug physics-related issues. You can click the button to the right to record either screen capture or the GLTF frames. And that explains nearly everything about the viewport. The last major part of the UI is the toolbar to the left of the Explorer. The toolbar is a set of buttons for switching modes and performing common actions. We are currently in edit mode. If we swap to navigate mode, this will hide the Explorer and Inspector. In navigate mode, we can do things like interact with the physics, which is quite fun and helpful for testing your models. We can also open the script editor. This is where you can create your scripted components, which you can then add to entities. The button below is called the I/O browser. The I/O browser allows you to connect your simulation to PLCs for controls testing and virtual commissioning. We support a wide range of protocols and also have a Python client you can connect to. You can also click the Open button to open a ProtoTwin model and the Save button to save your existing model in the application. The Analysis button will toggle the analysis pane, allowing you to visualize your plots. You can click the VR button to toggle virtual reality. The Settings button at the bottom will open a model window where you can customize model configurations, like the graphics settings, physics settings, units displayed in the inspector, and other general settings. You can enable the performance monitor and do things like hide the view cube at the bottom. There's also the Account button at the bottom that will redirect you to the Account page on our main website. And that's everything I wanted to go over regarding the UI. Thanks for watching.